Okay, Ms. Clerk, I gather we're ready. So I'll call the meeting to order. I'll begin with the land acknowledgement. I acknowledge that the Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. Okay, can we get approval of the minutes from August 21st? Councillor Cleary? Second by Councillor Young. You guys kind of have me over a barrel if you don't first and second right now. So all in favor? Aye. Okay, the minutes are approved. Approval of the order of additions and deletions. Ms. Clerk.
There are no additions or deletions from the clerk's office.
Okay. Would someone like to move the order of business? Moved by Councillor Young, second by Councillor Cleary. All those in favor? Aye. We have an approved order of business. Business arising out of the minutes, there are none. Are there any conflicts of interest to declare today? Seeing none. Motions of reconsideration, none. Motions of rescission, none. Consideration of deferred business, there's none. There are no tabled matters. Ms. Clerk, correspondence, petitions, and delegations.
Correspondence has been submitted and circulated for item 1311.
Thank you. Does anyone have any petitions today? Seeing head shakes. Presentations, none. So that brings us to public participation. I understand that we might have a Danielle Maltese joining by Zoom. If we can tee up Miss, is it Maltese?
Malte.
Malte. Oh, there you are. Thank you. My apologies, Malte.
That's okay.
So, Ms. Clerk, when you're ready, we can have Ms. Malte for five minutes.
Yep, we'll let her know when she's reached 30 seconds.
Okay, perfect. The floor is yours, Ms. Malte.
Amazing, and I believe I have a visual as well. I'm not sure if that's, there we go, it should be coming up. Perfect. Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Danielle Malte. I live in Fall River, and I am here today to propose a modest adjustment to Halifax Transit's Airport Fall River Regional Express, or Route 320, as I'll refer to it in this presentation. My proposal would improve transit access to the Wellington and Fall River communities. Currently, between the existing Pratt & Whitney and Old Guysborough stop in the top right of my image and the existing Fall River Park and Ride stop at the bottom of my image, Route 320 travels directly along the red line on Highway 102 for about 11 kilometers with no stops in between. Until now, residents in Wellington and folks working at the Fall River Plaza, or star number 2 in my image, have never had the option of a direct bus connection. In fact, as a member of this small community, I have really come to know the faces from the businesses in the Fall River Plaza. And this means that I can recognize these employees when I see them walk the 3 kilometers between the plaza and the Park and Ride. I witnessed them walk along roads with no sidewalks, narrow shoulders, and poor lighting infrastructure, followed by bushwhacking through the forest behind the Petro-Canada gas station, all just to get to and from work every day. I see them doing this in all kinds of weather at all times of day and night. It is not convenient, it's not accessible, and it is not safe. However, with the Aerotech connector between Highway 102 and Highway 2 recently opening, we now have an opportunity. If Route 320 were shifted to use the connector and continue along Highway 2, as indicated by the yellow route in my image, the distance traveled by the bus would only increase by about 2 kilometers, yet it would provide new direct service to the Fall River Plaza and resolve this lack of convenience, accessibility, and safety. Now, let me tell you about other community benefits this would unlock. Adding a stop at star number 2 would bring the route 320 just under 1 kilometer away from the Gordon R. Snow Community Center. This center hosts public recreational programs as well as children's camps, making these activities more accessible to families without cars while giving youth the opportunity to safely travel on their own. adding a bike rack near the stop at star number 2, we could encourage members of the Fall River community to combine cycling with transit, which is aligned with the active transportation goals outlined in the Integrated Mobility Plan. It would provide Wellington residents with not only their first direct connection downtown, but adding a stop at star number 1 would also provide direct access to the Wellington Fire Hall. This fire hall often hosts music events and local markets, increasing community engagement. In short, this is a small routing change with significant immediate benefits for safety, for families, for local businesses, all without creating an entirely new route. More importantly, this adjustment isn't just about today. Fall River is facing significant growth without any published matching transit planning. Between the Ingram Drive and Fall River Site B developments, more than 430 new homes and a long-term care facility are coming to the community. That's hundreds of new residents, young families, seniors, and commuters moving in, yet no new transportation infrastructure has been proposed to support them. Updating Route 320 would be a practical first step to meet this need while also laying the groundwork for future localized bus routes as the population continues to grow. Thank you very much for your time and consideration, and I would be more than happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you for your presentation. There is a question, and I want to emphasize these are questions of clarification, public hearing style rules. So, Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and duly noted. And thank you, Ms. Malte, for your presentation. So you mentioned that this would add 2 kilometers to the trip, and I'll be honest, I don't drive through this area very often. So do you have any sense, maybe through your own experience or through any kind of data that you were able to grab, how much time would be added for that 2 kilometer stretch?
I do not have data for how much exactly it would add as time. I would also recommend adding probably additional stops for the public to use, which I'm not sure what kind of data every stop adds to a route change. That being said, I believe that the 2 kilometers, the speed is reduced to about 70 kilometers per hour in that area. Overall, I guesstimate maybe a 10-minute time change.
Okay, I don't even know if we would have. But you say you see workers at the store, then there's also the community center. Any sense of how many residents would be in your, chats with them? How many residents would want to take a bus from this location?
I have not had discussions. No, I have not had discussions about that.
Okay, I appreciate that, and I will talk to the councillor for the area. Maybe there'll be a motion coming forward at some point in the future on this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you, Ms. Maltese, for the presentation. I thought there might have been a motion outstanding on this already. I'm seeing nods from our transit folks who have been here in the room and have heard your presentation, so this will be duly considered. Thank you for sharing with us today.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Clerk, is there anyone else signed up on our list? Yeah, do we have? But not pre-registered. Yeah, now we'll do the open public call. So if anyone else would like to come present to us today. Just give your name and community for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Sue Utek, and I'm the Executive Director for the Spring Garden Area Business Association. And just before we start, I love the new security downstairs. Wish I was 21 so I could just walk right through in a bikini to get it over with, but congratulations on the security. I'm sure meetings will be much smoother. So members, on behalf of the Spring Garden Board of Directors and its members, we're asking you to accept the staff recommendation to not proceed with the implementation approach described in the staff report dated March 28th, 2023 for a transit priority corridor pilot project along Spring Garden Road between South Park and Queen Street. As well, we're asking you to reject option number 2, which will consider future options for transit priority as part of the BRT implementation. Spring Garden has been exhaustively reviewed over a number of years, beginning in 2018, 2017, 2016, with each and every option proving to be unfeasible, incredibly expensive, and unworkable. Every alternative in this report cannot proceed due to legislation and plain common sense. The report states further exploration of a transit priority on a permanent basis will require substantial design work, additional budget, and take several years to complete. Is this really necessary for 4 city blocks? One should question why a report that has essentially taken 2 years of staff time to repair and considerable tax dollars should further be explored, again, at taxpayer expense and also at the expense of the business community in Spring Garden and the new residential community that we're striving so hard to build. The staff report of August 29, 24 stated that the addition of more transit service, specifically 9 more routes onto Spring Garden at peak times, will result in operational challenges and delays for passengers. In a system already stressed and under heavy criticism by the public, we agree that adding more buses and displacing cars through residential areas is not the answer. In our most recent survey of August 2025, 78% of business owners on the spine of Spring Garden are rejecting bus only as a solution. In closing, we want to thank staff for their time and attention to this matter and urge you, the committee, to close this chapter and move forward with more pressing transit priorities, as we just saw from the previous speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Just before you go, Ms. Utek, there's a question of clarification. Councillor Morris?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Sue, for the presentation. Can you just highlight a little bit more what the business owners see as the disadvantages of bus only, please?
It's the displacement of cars throughout the residential neighborhood. They don't feel that the bus, and I think, quite frankly, Councillor Morris, Catherine, was the last pilot project, really put the fear of this is unworkable, it's undoable. The things that we need to do, have pedestrian signals at Birmingham, cannot be accomplished. All the things that were mentioned by businesses from 2018 to 2023, I think was the last consultation at the Lord Nelson. This staff report has come out to say everything that we feel to be able to make this work cannot be done at this time. So I'm just saying this has been a horse that's been resurrected. You know, give staff a break. They've tried. They've done everything they can to try and accommodate council, the wishes of council. It's not feasible. It can't be done. So if the physical impediments cannot be done, I mean, look at the staff report itself. To show a picture of a gate, you know, a crank gate to go up and down, and what are you going to have 4 people at the end of Spring Garden to say, you man the gate, I got to use the bathroom? That's like every alternative that transit has proposed, and they're aware, and they say that right in the report. So that tells businesses that this is not going to be a workable solution in the future. And we understand, like, everyone accepts that we have close to 900 bus trips a day down Spring Garden, and we obviously impress upon the priority of buses down there. If you want to take your car down Spring Garden, that's fine. But it's not, it could be 1 car turning right onto Dresden Row that will hold everything up to Barrington Street. But again, part of the review of that area was staff was supposed to come back and review all the one-way streets. So even no matter what you do right now in this report, you can spend $1 million on bollards, but you're still driving traffic from Brenton and Birmingham onto Spring Garden because they have no choice. You've one-wayed those streets. And there was supposed to be a review in 2019, and it's never been done. So I would encourage transit to go back to the drawing board if the drawing board is, we're just let the dog lie. We've tried, right? Commendations to everyone. It's just not going to work. And the longer this experiment goes on, the more stressful it becomes for business. There's not a day that I don't get an inquiry. So we're hearing rumors, we want to relocate, but this bus only thing, how's that going to affect parking in the area? And how's this going to do this? These are questions that I can't answer because that experiment failed. And it failed because there was nothing put in advance of implementations. And this report tells you all these implementations that you're looking for in the future can't physically be done.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's the end of the list. So thank you very much for your presentation today. Would anybody else like to address us today? Second call. Would anyone else like to speak to us today? Third and final call. Would anyone else like to speak to us today? All right, seeing none, thank you very much to everyone who participated. Next, we will move to the main item of the agenda, which is the spring staff reports 13.1.1, the Spring Garden Road Transit Priority Corridor. And I think we have a presentation from, I see Patricia Hughes, and the other gentleman, you must be Nick Cuthbertson. Awesome. Okay, take us away.
So hi, yes, my name is Nick Cuthbertson. I'm here today with the Spring Garden Road Transit Priority Corridor Report. I'm a project manager inside of our transit planning division. So just to start us off with a little bit of background, in 2021, Council directed staff to proceed with a pilot transit priority corridor on Spring Garden Road. This was following an extended period where Spring Garden Road had been closed to general traffic due to construction. There were the streetscaping efforts that were going on at the time. This transit priority corridor was piloted starting in July of 2022. Although the pilot excluded cars from Spring Garden Road during daytime hours, general traffic had resumed traveling on Spring Garden Road following that construction. The pilot was paused after 5 days due to safety concerns and issues with enforcement. In September of 2022, TSC directed staff to conduct an operational review and develop an updated implementation approach. That report was submitted to TSC in March of 2023. The committee decided to defer the matter and requested a supplementary report. Although the report in front of you currently reads staff initiated due to administrative order requirements, the work is largely a result of requests made during the March 2023 meeting. I'm good? Okay. So just for a little more background, we have a visual representation of Spring Garden Road with the proposed transit priority corridor highlighted in red there. For additional context, as SUTEC very kindly pointed out ahead of this, we have nearly 856 buses at current pick, to be exact, currently transiting Spring Garden Road every weekday. And we expect that number to grow to more than 1,200 buses per weekday after BRT is realized. So just a quick review of Bus Rapid Transit, or BRT. That refers to a system that is bus system that is high capacity, high frequency, and high reliability. That point is made possible, or all three of those points, I should say, are made possible through ample transit priority measures across a BRT network. Halifax has a plan for BRT that's shown in the figure on the right. That was approved by Council in the Rapid Transit Strategy, along with those 4 BRT lines to provide high-quality transit service in the core of HRM. BRT is also a commitment in Link Nova Scotia's Regional Transportation Plan and serves a strong regional transportation purpose. Spring Garden Road, including Spring Garden Road between South Park Street and Queen Street, is a key part of that BRT network as currently designed. 2 out of the 4 lines, the red line and the yellow line, are intended to travel along that segment, as is the green line intended not to travel along that segment, but to travel along Roby and stop where it intersects with Spring Garden Road. So for a little more about the Spring Garden Road context, in evaluating Spring Garden Road Transit Priority Corridor in the context of our developing bus rapid transit network, it was found that Spring Garden Road specific measures may not offer the best solutions at a network level. The work has begun to consider the implementation of bus rapid transit, but the interventions anticipated on this corridor are not yet known, and additional analysis and approvals are required. So to give a bit of context about what we were looking at concerning Spring Garden Road, per Council's March 2023 direction, we did look at physical barriers, signalization, enforcement options, and creating a transit priority corridor on Spring Garden Road. For creating a transit priority corridor on Spring Garden Road. Resignalizing and adding barriers were both expected to come with significant construction components beyond what would be available for a pilot, and expenses, beyond what would be available for a pilot. The exception to this was manually moved barriers, which would be a potential short-term solution. Using manually operated barriers to keep private vehicles out of a transit priority corridor on Spring Garden Road would be comparatively fast and legal. However, gate attendants would be unable to ticket non-compliant cars, and staffing costs would grow significantly over time. So in conclusion, enforcement does remain a core concern, with the enforcement of moving offenses still delegated to police officers under the Motor Vehicle Act, and restrictions exist with our current HRP force in regards to who can physically be there at what times. They are spread quite thin right now. Most interventions evaluated were found to be costly, poorly situated for a pilot project, and may not be the right solution when considered as part of a broader network. Other options do exist. Analysis for transit priority in the BRT network is ongoing, and Spring Garden Road remains a core piece of that network. What works best for transit priority on Spring Garden Road by itself may not work best for the larger transit priority network, though, so greater consideration is required based on the development of BRT work at this time. So that leads us to our final recommendation, that the Transportation Standing Committee recommend that Regional Council 1 not proceed with the implementation approach described in the staff report dated March 28th, 2023 for a transit priority corridor pilot project along Spring Garden Road between South Park Street and Queen Street. And 2, direct the CAO to continue considering options for transit priority on Spring Garden Road as part of the broader planning for bus rapid transit implementation. That's our presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you folks may have.
Thank you for that. First up on the board would be Councillor Cuddle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would you like me to put that motion on the floor first? Okay. I move that the Transportation Standing Committee recommend that Regional Council 1 not proceed with the implementation approach described in the staff report dated March 28th, 2023 for a transit priority corridor pilot project along Spring Garden Road between South Park Street and Queen Street, and 2, direct the CIO to continue to consider options for transit priority on Spring Garden Road as part of the broader planning for bus rapid transit implementation.
Somebody? Councillor Cleary for the second.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I'm going to support the staff recommendation here. I do appreciate all the stones that have been turned on this over the years, and as well as the comments from Sue Utek from the Spring Garden Road Business Association. I think bus rapid transit is the long-term goal here. And before we make any major investments in anything on a pilot project, I think it would be prudent to continue to kind of push forward with BRT and see it as part of that study. Completely appreciate that additional analysis on all of this is required, and I would just rather see staff resources dedicated to figuring out the BRT part. One question I do have is about this idea of adding more buses with BRT. I mean, I was hoping that with BRT, we would re-examine the entire network, which would potentially and hopefully see a reduction in the number of routes that need to go down Spring Garden Road or Barrington or Gottingen Street, where these are main pedestrian corridors. And currently I can speak to Gottingen, the impact that the significant number of buses has on the quality of the pedestrian environment in those areas. Spring Garden, I think, is similar. Barrington is similar. So, I mean, when we're moving forward and looking at BRT, is it really, are we sure, is it going to be an addition of buses, or will the BRT replace some buses and reconfigure what happens there? I mean, how's that all going to work?
Patricia Hughes, Director of Planning and Customer Engagement at Halifax Transit. That is a great question. The BRT assumptions are just assumptions. We're not sure. And we do have another task ahead of us in terms of BRT implementation, which is an integration plan and what that does to the network. So we do, I guess, kind of assume that routes 1 to 10 largely overlap with the 4 BRT lines. They all need to be reconfigured. So that will be a project that includes public consultation to look at what happens on those corridors, what gets displaced by BRT, what maybe runs frequently now but could be a less frequent route, and what goes away completely. So the BRT numbers are very much early estimates and subject to a fulsome process to sort out.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It pains me to agree with the first part. especially since there's probably, well, maybe one other person around this table who dislikes vehicle traffic as much as I do. And if you recall, the reason for the failure, I in quotes call it a failure, but the reason the pilot had to be cut short was because too many drivers were illegally ignoring signs and going where they weren't supposed to go. We have this issue, which will be resolved shortly on Oak and Allen at Oxford, where a physical barrier will soon stop people from going straight across. But physical barriers are the only way to stop people who just want to ignore, who are selfishly ignoring the rules of the road. And paying attention to a sign is a illegal activity. You must, under the Nova Scotia Motor Vehicle Act, and this is true in the new Traffic Safety Act, follow the signage. So, whether it was going to be remote transponder gates or manual gates or whatever it's going to be, we would need physical barriers to do this. And given the cost for a pilot, and as Ms. Utek has pointed out, it's 4 blocks. And so this is an enormous amount of energy expenditure, of financial expenditure for trying to pilot something that in theory we know is going to work anyway. It's just a matter of how we get there and the steps we take. So I reluctantly will agree that there's no point in doing the pilot. I feel like, remember when you were a kid and your older brother would sit on you until you cried uncle? I'm that uncle. And so, you could tell I had a brother 7 years older than I did. I was. Point number 2, clause number 2. Definitely keep considering this for bus rapid transit. And to Councillor Cuddle's point, so around less buses. So I can't envision how we can move more people by buses if we have less buses, unless they have larger capacities of some type. I'm not sure. But to your comments back, though, Ms. Hughes, as we get further down this, in areas where we are serving pedestrian destinations, and there's absolutely no doubt that a place like Spring Garden Road is a pedestrian destination. And so when we're getting workers and employees of the retail in the area, of commercial businesses inside and outside the area, of customers, of people going to the library, people who are recreating, if we want more people out of cars, the best way to do that is more people on buses. So can you just further explain what you meant by you're going to review the network, you're going to look at different areas in terms of how many buses would go here? Because unless the buses that we have now are, over or under capacity, they're underutilized, wouldn't we necessarily need more buses in all areas if we're going to move more people by bus?
Thank you. And yes, I agree. This is definitely not to put words in the councillor's mouth, but a huge attraction to people, and it will always have extremely high ridership demand. I think that the estimates are assumptions, but there certainly could still be increases. I think that there are. But
also, I just get back up for a second. Sure. Our mode shift goal, is to reduce our current vehicle ridership to 70%, which was the last time we had hard data, 77% or 78%. And so some people will bike, some people will walk, but if they're more than a few kilometers away, the bus is going to be the best way to get there. So don't we necessarily get more riders or have to get more ridership? We're going to invest upwards of $1 billion between us and the other levels of government in BRT. I'm assuming we'll have more ridership then.
That is probably correct. I think there are potentially some structural changes. Like, for example, the express routes come in and half their passengers disembark on Barrington before they get to Spring Garden. So there may be some efficiencies, but generally, yes, we want to have more riders on Spring Garden, which would require more capacity for those riders. But it may not be the numbers that were presented before.
Right, okay. Okay, that's a whole other conversation for another time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, staff, for the report. I also agree with your recommendations, given where we're headed. I want to just initially understand the suggestion to do this 4 years ago. Was that staff initiated? Is that where the staff initiated piece came from? Yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. And just to follow up on Councillor Cleary's comments, just in general about signage, just a lesson learned in general. This is what we're dealing with for vulnerable road users. Signs do not get followed when we're thinking about pedestrian safety and bike safety and all that. We need more than a sign. I was wondering, with our new Transportation Safety Act, it's probably too early to say, but could cameras be a part of the solution in the future? Yeah.
Through the chair to the councillor, we are aware of the new Traffic Safety Act that was put on the floor of Province House, I believe it was the day before yesterday. We have taken a quick look at it. It does look like cameras could be allowed with sufficient provincial cooperation, but obviously where the piece of legislation is so new and it's yet to go to the final draft to be passed and then eventually proclaimed, we'll have to work with the province as that goes forward to make sure that's a possibility. But we're aware of it, and at the moment it appears there are options in the future.
Okay. That's great. The only other thing I just wanted to mention is this feels similar to me to the school streets pilots. I don't know if Catherine Morris has thoughts on that, but school streets are super important, and I really think we should start thinking about them as permanent changes versus pilot because they're so hard to implement. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Do folks mind if I just speak from here? All right, seeing head nods, so I'm going to start a little timer for myself. I'm kind of where Councillor Cleary is on this. I mean, I agree that I don't think it's really feasible for us to be running a pilot that has staff out there opening and closing a gate manually. I don't think that's going to work. I'm in the same disappointed space. I did have some questions. 800, the report said 999, but then the presentation 856, whatever it is, we have a lot of buses on Spring Garden Road. Would this be our busiest bus street? Like what's that in context in our network?
Yeah, so I'll speak first to the 999 versus the 856. The 999 refers to Spring Garden Road as a whole, whereas the 856 refers specifically to the section between South Park Street and Queen Street. So that's where the difference is in those numbers there. So apologies for any confusion on that end. When it comes to our busiest stretches, this is among our busiest stretches. We are also extremely busy on Barrington Street, Spring Garden Road. We also have marked as the street where we are encountering the highest degree of lateness inside of our network per the last analysis we performed on that.
So you've very much anticipated my second question, which is I didn't see anything in this report, but maybe it's just my memory can't reach back far enough to the past reports. But if we done any analysis looking at what the actual benefit to transit would be, because I know on time has been declining, and I think it's declining even more than is immediately evident, because what happens is Robin and Patricia then come in here and say, well, this one's always late, we better add 2 more minutes to that bus run. And so then it's not quite as late as it appeared before, but the service has actually been degraded steadily over time. So I'm wondering, have we analyzed what we expect the benefit of BRT on this corridor would be?
Yes, we did see in the last staff report, we spoke to immediate benefit from the streetscaping project, and we have looked and we've had increased travel time since that time. So we're seeing more run time required on the corridor now. We do expect a better and more reliable service on Spring Garden, but the challenge is, and the barrier to the analysis is then, if say you're headed eastbound, when you hit Queen, what is happening at that intersection now as car traffic is diverting? And so I think the question mark that we wouldn't know unless we did a pilot is, even if you gain some reliability on the 4-block corridor, what are the bookends doing, and what are all the car movements, and does that counterbalance it so that there's no net benefit? And there's too many unknowns there to give a solid answer in what we would see for transit benefit if they're getting challenged with those corridors. I would say as well, our reliability concerns on Barrington at this point are a bit it has lost more ground, I think, in terms of reliability than Spring Garden. So overall there may not be a it's really hard to do that analysis, I guess I would say. I don't have a firm answer.
Okay. Well, my last question, the report references that, well, if we do something now, it might not line up with BRT. As just a layperson here, what do you mean by that? I can't understand how, if we're doing BRT, how making this transit priority ahead of this would somehow interfere with future plans that include transit priority. I'm not there wasn't much detail in the report, so I don't follow the argument.
Sure, and I think that especially relates to some of the more costly infrastructure. So installing a gate, for example, and if in BRT a bus lane started further back, that gate may be redundant. Or if you were to upgrade signalization with one thought in mind, and then with BRT the corridor looks different or is extended or is transit only in different ways, then that infrastructure investment may not make sense anymore if there's other queue jumps happening in other areas.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions. I'll just wrap up by saying that, it's frustrating to me that we're here, 2 years on after this process started. We have one of the busiest bus corridors in the city, and we basically still don't have an answer other than, well, service is going to continue to slowly degrade as buses continue to get stuck in traffic here until we maybe get to BRT in the future, which will hopefully help us here. But, we don't know what that's going to look like. We don't know when that might come. We don't know if it will be funded, when it might happen. It's hard to be hopeful, honestly, looking at this report. I appreciate the work, but it's not a feel-good one, that's for sure. Councillor Morris, I seem to have inspired you to come back. Thank you.
You do every day, Councillor Austin. No, my question is just sort of a technical question, I guess, but at peak times, have we not reached almost our maximum capacity now? Because there are times, say around 4:30, 5 o'clock, when you're looking down Barrington Street, for example, and it's bus after bus after bus after bus. And these, how can you go any faster? It's bumper to bumper buses. So the physics of it, do they not help set our maximum capacity on Barrington and possibly Spring Garden?
Yes, that's a great question. Thank you so much. When it comes to bus capacity, a larger part of that is where those buses are going and why they're traveling at the speed they're traveling. Because there's a big difference between a lineup of buses that are effectively able to go the limit and a bunch of buses that are effectively halted and standstill. Some of that is obviously in regards to the traffic configurations we set up. Do you need to stop at the railroad tracks? Do you need to stop at the stop sign? That sort of thing. But another large part of it is where are you going and are there other cars there already? And so even if it may not be immediately apparent on Barrington Street, there may be a large number of buses that are still waiting for cars that are further up or further down the street. And then that is slowing them down significantly. So we do believe that if Spring Garden Road were to become transit only, we would still see a significant improvement in travel times with the removal of non-transit traffic. There is a limit, but we do not believe we are currently at that threshold. Does that answer the question?
I think so, yeah.
That would appear to clear the board. If someone would like to call the question. Question has been called. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you, everyone. So next up, 13.1.2, amendments to appointment of traffic authority and deputy traffic authorities. This would be Roddy McIntyre. If there's any questions, I don't think we need a presentation on this item. Would someone like to move it? Councillor Cleary?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move that the Transportation Standing Committee recommend that Halifax Regional Council adopt the amendments to Administrative Order 12, the appointment of the Traffic Authority as set in Attachment 2 of the staff report dated September 5th, 2025. 2, 1, adopt the amendments to Administrative Order 12, the appointment of the Traffic Authority Administrative Order as set in Attachment 2 of the staff report dated September 5th. 2A, repeal the current appointments of Brad Anguish as Traffic Authority, Lucas Pitts as Deputy Traffic Authority, and Roddy McIntyre as Deputy Traffic Authority. And B, appoint Roddy McIntyre as the Traffic Authority, Jill Morrison as Deputy Traffic Authority, and Hannah McBride as a Deputy Traffic Authority.
Second by Councillor Councillor Cuddle. My apologies.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I had conversations with our staff a number of weeks ago, and in a very pointed question to Roddy was just like, you know, in reality, you've been in the traffic authority for a while now, so maybe we should update the admin order. And I thank Lucas and Brad for all of their hard work over the years. But this is one of those funny things, and because it is such an integral part of what we do, and of course the deputies can you know, they have the same authority, obviously, but there's always that one person at the top of the pyramid that's the guy or girl we call and say, hey, can we do this, can we do that? And the requests for traffic calming and other things go. And so it's just really important for us to keep that updated, and happy to see Roddy as our official traffic authority now. And kudos to Mr. McIntyre, he's been awesome.
Thank you, Councillor. Seeing no one on the board. Question? Question has been called. All those in favor? All those opposed? That carries. Next item would be 14.1. This is motions of Councillor Cuddle.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'd like to put a motion on the floor that the Transportation Standing Committee request an information report on the reporting and response process for issues related to micromobility and the number and nature of complaints since phase 1 of the micromobility program was introduced. Thank you, Councillor Moore.
Second, Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Yeah, so I originally submitted this NOM back in June, and bringing it forward now, mainly because, you know, back in June the program was a couple months old, and I was continuing to see bikes and scooters left in all kinds of places around the city, including often in the middle of sidewalks, blocking accessibility. And I have photos not just that I took, but also that residents have been sending in. I'm sure we've all got a few of those. And, you know, my experience in calling in one complaint was, it was around 9 p.m. There was a scooter in the middle of a sidewalk. I called 311, which is after hours, and it's not an emergency. And nothing was going to be done with that scooter lying in the middle of the sidewalk in terms of even being able to file a complaint until the next day. You know, chances are that the company might have picked up that the scooter was there and got it beforehand. But in the meantime, you know, I have lots of residents in Spryfield who use wheelchairs, that use battery-powered scooters, and rely on our sidewalks to get around. So this is what led to me bringing forward this motion, and to see if the problems that I've been hearing about, just how widespread are they? How is the company responding to these reports? Because a lot of these issues were brought up when we initially looked at the pilot, approved the pilot. We heard from the Active Transportation Advisory Committee. We heard from accessibility groups, and we heard from you know, people who just, you know, generally walk, about, you know, kind of concerns, and then now seeing the concerns come to fruition here on our streets. I think it would be worthy to get a report to understand how prevalent is this issue, what's being done to adapt, how is Bird adapting to these complaints, are they getting better in servicing these standards, and what's going to be done in the future to avoid them, because I don't think that this is something that we can just continue to let happen. So that's the nature of this request, and I hope I have your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cuddle. Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I guess, I'll support this, and I want, if staff can, to not only look at the micromobility pilot that we've engaged in, but just micromobility issues in general, and if it's possible to make sure the data is there, but then also kind of distinguish between issues with Bird and just issues with scooters, as an example, that privately owned scooters rather than the Bird scooters. So my experience so far working with Bird and our staff, and if you haven't worked with the manager, she's awesome, from Halifax, and they've been very responsive. So I've had a couple of situations in the district on Coburg or Jubilee Road, for example. There was a health clinic there. And one morning, all of a sudden, it was like, 4 bikes and 18 scooters showed up right in front of their ramp, and people couldn't access their door. Kind of ironic. I mean, they, osteopathy and physiotherapy and that kind of stuff, and stuff blocking a ramp to get in. And so it took a few days to get through, but Bird was responsive. They moved it to another location. Similarly, there was a vet clinic up on Shabukdo, same sort of situation there. Animals distressed going through as people were speeding by them. And again, Bird removed those. So information on that kind of stuff at regular points would be great. But also, because I just want to remind people, when the province made the changes to allow for scooters on our roads, e-scooters, they did give HRM the ability to ban them. So that is within our power from the provincial government. And so I just want people to be on notice that, and especially the companies involved here, and especially the company with our pilot, if you're not fixing the issues, and if you are not getting the agreement and the training of your riders, we can take this privilege away. And I would say right now, I mean, normally the biggest complaints I get are around speeding vehicles and traffic calming and that kind of stuff. But an increasing number of emails and phone calls I'm getting right now are around dangerous scooters, particularly around sidewalks, which is illegal. And so all of those issues, I'm happy to support this, to get that information, because I think, I would like to nip some of these issues in the bud if we can, and just get a handle on what those issues are, because if we have to take other steps, or we do have a bylaw, if we have to make changes to our bylaw, what those issues are that we need to address in the bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll offer just an observation from here. I think when you think about these things, I think this is absolutely worth a look at, to see how we can do it better, see if there's systematic things that we can kind of fix up here, tighten up. Do I think that we'll ever be at a place where we have 0 parking complaints on e-bikes or e-scooters? Well, I wish we had 0 parking complaints about cars too, right? Unfortunately, it is kind of the nature of humans to leave things where they're not supposed to. And so what do we do with that is usually the key thing. I would like, if staff are looking at this, also to take a look at, is the company delivering on what they promised in terms of some of the other aspects? I used the service for the first time. I've used it twice now in the last couple of weeks. And I just, the other day, my visiting friend and I, we took e-bikes home from Halifax waterfront. The one bike had a helmet, but the bike could not detect that it had a helmet and would not unlock the helmet. Bike number 2 had a helmet. It didn't know the helmet was there, but the helmet's still unlocked. And then, the other bike was missing its helmet entirely. So I put on the helmet. My friend opted not to. And I got asked on my phone to take a selfie of me wearing my helmet. His phone never prompted him to take a selfie wearing a helmet. So the whole thing just seemed like there's a lot of inconsistency in actually how this is operating on the user experience that I think we should be auditing and taking a look at as well. Seeing no one else, question has been called. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Okay, that carries. In-camera items, we have none. There are no added items. Does anyone have a notice of motion today on anything? Seeing none. So the date of our next meeting will be October 23rd. I would take a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Cleary. We are adjourned. And I'll just say, for those joining the Deputy Mayor over in Dartmouth, it's a good day for a ride. Thank you.
I hate to say it, but the news might ask us if we coordinate.